Hi, I am Dr. Felice Gersh, your integrative physician, once more speaking to you from my office in Irvine, California. Today, we will continue the dialogue on fasting with a focus on prolonged or very lengthy fasting. But first, for those of you who are new to my show, I would like to introduce myself. As I mentioned, I'm Dr. Felice Gersh. I'm an integrative physician. That means that I combine the most efficacious and safest modalities to help all of my patients to optimize their health and their quality of life. My training is foundationally as an OBGYN, but I also did a 2-year fellowship in integrative medicine, and I'm board certified in both fields. So, getting back to fasting. For those of you who are not sure what it means, fasting is very simple. It means not eating. So you can fast for 1 minute. Unfortunately, some people never fast for more than about a minute because they basically have some sort of a sugary drink at their side, at their desk or home, pretty much 24 hours a day, except when they're sleeping. And even then, they may even have something on their night table. And people have been known to wake up in the middle of the night and then start having a drink from a can of soda. We never want to do that. So we can fast for a very short period of time, or what we've already covered is time-restricted eating, where you fast for certain hours during the 24-hour day, which, as I told you, is incredibly important. And for those of you who missed that show, all of my shows are archived on my YouTube channel, so you can go back and start from the beginning. And we talked about other forms of fasting. For example, intermittent fasting, where you can fast or modify the fast every other day of the week, or 2 out of the 7 days of the week. Or you can also do what's called the fasting mimicking diet, where you get to eat and also get the benefits of fasting, and you do that for 5 days in a row. Now, what about fasting for long periods of time? This has actually been part of many weight loss programs, and not just weight loss. They have incorporated it for people who have hypertension, diabetes, and so forth. But it's really not in vogue any longer for good reason. So let me tell you why you don't want to do this. Even some of the clinics that have been out there that were doing long-term fasting. We're talking about fasting for more than a week or even 10 days. Once you get beyond about 10 days of fasting, and we'll talk about what does that mean. It means not having any food, right? Fasting means not eating food or drinking food. I want to mention that some people talk about juice fasting or broth fasting. That is not fasting. That is having liquid food. So if you liquefy your food, it is still full of whatever was in that food. So that is not a fast. You can call anything you want something, but it doesn't make it right. So a juice fast is not a fast. Having nothing but bone broth is not a fast. So, but obviously, if you do very limited amounts and you're well under 25% of your caloric needs for the day, that would fall under the category of a modified fast. Although, as I mentioned to you when I talked about modified fasting, I prefer if those small amounts of calories that you take in for the day are predominantly fat calories, so that you keep your insulin and glucose levels low. But people have gone, as I mentioned, into these long-term fasts. And there were clinics that were set up around the country for this very purpose of long-term fasts. And to help people to have long-term fasts, sometimes they did some very strange things. For example, I remember a few decades ago, what had become popular was taking wires and wiring shut people's jaws. I am not kidding, for those of you who've never heard of that. They would wire people's jaws shut so they could only drink liquid through a straw. And then they were told to have very little of that as well. So it was really a modified fast, and it went on for sometimes weeks at a time. And I can tell you it was for predominantly weight loss, and virtually 100% of the people, if not 100%, gained all the weight back and often more, and I'll explain why that happens. So prolonged fasting is not beneficial to your health. So what are some of the side effects or symptoms that people experience if they have prolonged fasting? So we're not talking about where you eat all your calories as liquid. That is not fasting. That is a liquid diet. We're talking about where you have very few calories or none. And I say very few would be less than 25% of your caloric needs for the day, or literally no caloric intake, just water. By the way, no fasting should ever be done what's called dry fasting. That's where you have no liquids. That's the fast way to die, because dehydration will kill you. You can live fairly long periods of time when you do a food fast, but a liquid, when you don't have liquids and you have no water coming in, that is a ticket to dying rather rapidly, because you need to have fluid. So never ever do a fast where you don't have adequate fluids. In fact, hydration is so important when you do any of the fasting programs I've discussed in the past. And I want you to know, if you have any medical underlying issues or you have any concerns, these are not things that I recommend that you just do on your own. Please work with your trusted medical professional. I really am just here to educate you about the different types of fasting. I'm not encouraging you to do all these things on your own. I really want you to do it under the guidance of someone who you trust, who's a medical professional. Now, prolonged fasting is very, very unhealthy. Now, I mentioned that when you do short fasting, like a fasting mimicking diet, your body, interestingly, targets burning fat. And for example, the fasting mimicking diet actually preserves lean body mass. So your muscles, your ligaments, and what's another muscle? Like your heart, they do not get damaged when you do a fasting mimicking diet for the 5 days. But when you do prolonged fasting, even if you have a significant store of visceral fat, that's the inflammatory belly fat, or you have excessive storage fat, which is like the fat you would have on your thighs or on your butt, if you have even plenty of fat, after you have fasted for about a week to 10 days, you will start to eat up. Your body will start to take down and really damage your lean body mass supplies. So what does this mean? It means that you're going to actually start self-consuming your muscle mass. So muscles are precious and you can't rebuild them. It's really, I mean, you can, but it's not easy. Once you work on muscle is so hard. And after a certain age, for like postmenopausal women, it's very hard when you don't have adequate hormones to actually build up good muscle. You need testosterone, you need estrogen, and when we get older, we don't have those naturally. Of course, you can take them as supplements, and that's another whole story, but even then, it's not the same as being young, I can tell you that. So it's much harder, and there's a very significant loss of lean body mass with aging naturally, which we try to avoid with exercise and proper diets and supplements with, that are professionally prescribed with hormones. But when you do a prolonged fast at any age, you're going to start eating up your own muscle, because your body needs protein, not just fat. Now, it can get by for just a few days by using the fuel of your fat stores, and it always goes for the visceral fat first. But after that many days, after a week, 10 days, you're going to start destroying your lean body mass, and your muscles are going to start to reduce in size as it gets broken down into the amino acids that it's composed of. The proteins are made of amino acids. And what will happen is you may get muscle aches, pains in your legs and in your muscles. And this is really frightening, but has been shown to happen, that it will also start to eat up your heart muscle. Remember, the heart is a muscle. There have been cases of people who've gone on prolonged fasting and died suddenly from cardiac events because their muscle of their heart muscle was actually being eaten up internally during this prolonged fasting. Remember, prolonged fasting, I'm just talking about more than 7 to 10 days. So we're not talking about you have to go 3-4 weeks. People have done that, and people have done fasting for political statements where sometimes with terrible dire results because they did not realize that it was affecting their heart muscle to the degree it was. So people who do prolonged fasting over 7 to 10 days will often have lightheadedness and dizziness. It can affect major organs like the liver and the kidneys. Now, when you start breaking down the muscle, you may have particles of muscle that are called, it's a process called rhabdomyolysis. So you actually break down muscle and it can get clogged up as it filters, as the blood filters through the kidney. It can cause kidney damage. As well, a lot of the body breakdown products go through the liver. The liver actually can become starved and the liver will become ill. And these are vital, life-giving organs, your liver, your kidneys, and these can be harmed by prolonged fasting. You may have fuzzy thinking, problems with your cognition when you have prolonged fasting. Whereas when you do very short-term fasting, the body is in a survival state that it wants to burn and create energy by burning fat so that you're more energetic, that you're smarter. Remember, you're increasing brain growth factors when you do these short-term fasts. But once you get into a prolonged fast, the body is really in a starvation mode. So it will start breaking down vital organs. It will start creating dysfunction of the brain, the heart, the muscles. People have muscle pain. They have weakness, foggy thinking. As I mentioned, problems with their liver and kidneys. And there'll be GI problems because every single cell in the body becomes nutrient deficient. So this is really important. Once your body gets into a state of true nutrient deficiency, you're going to have a lot of medical problems. So there are certain types of vitamins that are called fat-soluble vitamins. They are stored in fat. So that includes vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. So those vitamins are stored, and assuming you had adequate stores to begin with, which you can't take for granted these days, but assuming that you did because you were eating super healthy diet and lots of vegetables and maybe took some supplements, you could get by for quite some time on your stored fat-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble vitamins are not stored. You need to have intake of them every day. That's one reason why with the fasting mimicking diet that I love and use myself, that's called Prolon, they incorporate some nutrients as supplements that don't alter the state of fasting, but provide the essential nutrients that you need. So that's why I really like that. But short-term water fasting for someone who's very healthy, they can get by for just those very few days. Like if you water fasted for 3 or 4 days, you can get by on your fat-soluble vitamin stores. And assuming that you already were very healthy to begin with, that's why this is not like a do-it-yourselfer. You don't, if you don't know what your status is to begin with, but if you had very healthy status to begin with, and you had all the nutrients that you need, you could get by those few days, even without taking in the water-soluble vitamins. But it's better, of course, when you do have some supplementation, but you have to know what you're doing, or you may actually mess up the whole fasting situation. So that's why it's something to consider, doing the fasting mimicking diet. But most people, if they're healthy, can get by. That's why one of the things I love to do with my patients, I never start fasting right out the gate. I always say the first thing we need to do is get you well nourished. Many people who are overweight and want to lose weight don't realize that they're actually malnourished, and we need to get a beautiful supply of vitamins and nutrients and minerals and all of this into their bodies before they would even consider doing a fasting program, because you have to live off of your body's stores. So we want to make everything properly supplied, right? So that the body can get through even 3 or 4 days without nutrients coming in. So in terms of prolonged fasting, most everyone, in fact, everyone will, because even if you have very good stores of fat-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble vitamins are going to become in a deficient state. So what are some of the critical water-soluble vitamins that you will become deficient in? Vitamin C and all the B vitamins, they're all water soluble. And you will probably start having mineral deficiency. So you may get leg cramps. That's very common because of shortage of magnesium. And because you will pull the magnesium and calcium from your bones, because that's where they're stored, you will lose bone mass too over time. And no women, I can tell you, ever should lose bone mass. So please, the take-home message, I want to make this resoundingly clear that you do not want to be put into a state of starvation. That's really what a prolonged fast, more than 7 to 10 days, will put you into. You will feel poorly. Your metabolism will slow. So that's another thing I wanted to tell you about. Your body is now in a starvation state, so with no caloric intake, your body is going to try to slow its caloric needs by slowing your metabolic processes. That means everything in your body, is going to be in slow motion. It's like you're a 6-cylinder car working on 4 cylinders. So you can still get around, but everything is going to be functioning at a suboptimal level. So what does that mean? It's as if you will be low thyroid. Even though your thyroid may be fine, your thyroid gland was not sick, but your body is going to suppress the production of the active form, the functional form of thyroid called T3. So your free T3 levels will go down and you'll increase the production of its antagonist, which is called reverse T3. That's how the body slows your metabolic rate. It makes less T3 from T4, which is the storage form of thyroid hormone, and it makes more reverse T3, which blocks the receptor for T3. So you're blocking the T3 where it would fit into the receptor to create all kinds of responses, and you make less of it to begin with. So basically your body is going to be sluggish. You may get constipated, you'll feel tired. I guarantee you're going to feel tired. And your body is just going to do everything it can to conserve energy, which means you're going to be sluggish. You're going to be thinking slow motion, working slow motion. That's hardly how you want to live your life or any portion of it. So what happens is your body gets like a whole new metabolic set point. So yes, you will lose weight. I mean, that's a given. If you stop eating, your body will start to burn up your fat. But like I said, it's going to also start eating up your lean body mass. Your ligaments, your bones will start to break down. You're going to lose muscle mass. You're going to lose collagen. You're going to look like you're aging. Who wants to look like they're aging? The idea is that you look younger, which is what you do. You actually will look younger when you do short-term fasts and time-restricted eating, because you're improving your health. You will look better. You'll feel better. Prolonged fasting, 7 to 10 days or longer, you're going to age more rapidly. Your body is breaking down, including in your face, your collagen. You're going to get more wrinkles. That's like, who wants that? Come on, you guys. So your body will be in a breakdown mode and your metabolic set point is going to be lower. So yes, you will lose weight, but you're going to lose the good stuff and the bad stuff and the in-between stuff like support fat, which is not really so good to lose. What you do want to lose is visceral fat, but you're not going to just lose that. You're going to lose all this other important stuff. And when you stop, because you're not going to be fasting forever, when you start refeeding and you start eating again, your body is going to rapidly try to put back the weight. The muscle you lost will not be replaced with new muscle. It will be replaced with fat. So then you will have less muscle in your body. Muscle is so important for burning glucose, for burning fat, for being able to be strong and moving well and having good balance. So you will be dramatically reducing your glucose regulation capabilities. You're going to be weaker afterwards. And in order to maintain the new weight that you're at, if you keep some of the weight off, you will have to eat hundreds of calories less per day than someone who weighed that and lost the weight through a healthy way or never gained the weight to lose in the first place. So the healthiest way to lose weight is through time-restricted eating combined with exercise, preferably in the morning, and short-term fasting, where you only fast either every other day or modify it, or 2 out of 7 days, the 5-2, or with the fasting mimicking diet. That's the sensible way, not just sensible, healthy, and giving you long-term good results. If you do prolonged fasting, you will lose weight, you will lose fat, you will lose good fat, you will lose bad fat, and you will lose lean body mass. You will potentially damage your kidneys, your heart, your liver. Your gut won't work properly. You'll feel foggy brained. You'll feel tired. You'll feel lightheaded and dizzy. Please do not do prolonged fasting, but whatever fasting you do, which hopefully will be either, if you get into this, the alternate day, the 5-2, the modified, or fasting mimicking diet, and of course everyone should do, with few exceptions, time-restricted eating. Now, let me mention, like in terms of time-restricted eating, who should not do it? Women who are breastfeeding, women who are pregnant, people who are very elderly, frail people, ill people, people who just underwent surgery. So please, there are exceptions. I'm talking about the general population of relatively healthy people who may have some weight to lose and maybe some mild metabolic issues. Remember, if you have a clear-cut disease, if you're diagnosed with diabetes, you are on medications for diabetes, you're on medications for hypertension or other kinds of diseases, irregular heart rhythms, those are not people that should be doing any kind of fasting, probably at all, but for sure not on your own. So please, I always like to warn you, I'm educating, I'm not telling you go out and do this. For sure, do not do prolonged fasting. The other types of fasting you should do with a trusted medical professional. So, in summary, life is best when you eat wonderful healthy food and when sometimes you do fasting. If you do fasting inappropriately, like prolonged fasting, or if you're not a candidate for fasting, you can do significant harm, and people have actually suffered death when they have done prolonged fasting or inappropriate fasting. So we take this very seriously. I want you to understand what's out there, but I also want to make sure you do everything safely and under proper guidance. We are going to continue this dialogue. We have so much more to talk about in the future, the very near future. We're going to talk about specifics of fasting for women. A lot of what I've talked about so far with little bits here and there has been sort of general information, but women are very different creatures from men. And so our fasting needs to take into account our hormones, our rhythms, our fertility status or lack thereof. So much more to come. So stay well, stay safe. I look forward to seeing all of you again soon. Bye.